Hello friends, you're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never used to care about reunions. Not the family kind, not the neighborhood block parties, and definitely not high school ones. But when the invite for Cedar Brook High's class of 2011 reunion popped up in my inbox, something inside me twisted. 10 years. 10 years since I walked across that stage pretending I was proud. Pretending the whispers and laughter hadn't carved me into something small and scared. The email said Saturday, June 15th, 7 p.m. Cedar Brook Community Center Gymnasium. Same place where it all started. Same fluorescent lights. Same ghosts. I told myself I'd deleted it. But the truth? I read it every night before bed, like a threat I couldn't ignore. Because deep down, I wanted to walk in there and make them see me. Not the fat girl, not the joke, not the one who cried in the locker room every day after gym class. Back then, I was Ava Moreno, the big girl. 312 pounds of target practice for people who needed someone to hate more than themselves. There was one day I still can't forget. Sophomore year, March. I was standing in the cafeteria line, trying to decide between chicken nuggets and salad, when I heard laughter behind me. Then someone mooed. Loud, I froze. Another moo, then a third. I turned around and saw Tessa Grant, cheer captain, blonde, perfect, loud enough for everyone to hear, standing on a chair, hand cupped around her mouth. "Hey, Ava," she shouted. "The farm called. They want their prize cow back." The whole cafeteria erupted. Even the lunch monitor smirked. That was the day I decided I'd never forgive them. Not Tessa, not anyone who laughed. After graduation, I left Cedar Brook. I moved to Chicago, got a job as a receptionist in a dental office, shared a crappy apartment with a girl who played her music too loud. I lost touch with everyone, but the echoes stayed. The laughter, the whispers, the image of me breaking down in a bathroom stall. And then, last year, something changed. A co-worker told me about this new medication, semaglutide. She called it a miracle in a pen. You take a shot once a week and the weight just falls off. I'd heard of it, of course. It was all over Reddit, all over TikTok. People were calling it the cheat code. I swore I'd never be that person, someone desperate enough to jab a needle into their own skin for vanity. But after 20 years of yo-yo diets, tears, and gym memberships I couldn't afford, desperation doesn't feel desperate anymore. It just feels like survival. So I did it. One tiny shot in the thigh, then another, then another. By month 3, I was down 40 pounds. By 6, nearly 90. I'd never felt like this before. Light, invisible, untouchable. The looks I got on the street changed. Men held doors open. Co-workers complimented my glow. For the first time, I wasn't just there. I was seen. So when that reunion invite came again in March, I clicked yes. The night of the reunion, I sat in my car outside the Cedar Brook Community Center, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My reflection in the mirror looked nothing like the girl who'd left town. My face had angles now. My waist curved in all the right places. My dress, navy silk, slit at the thigh, fit perfectly. "Just walk in," I whispered to myself. "You're not her anymore." I stepped out. My heels clicked against the pavement, echoing across the lot. Inside, the gym was exactly as I remembered. Cheap disco lights, the smell of stale punch, a DJ blasting songs from 2011. Heads turned as soon as I walked in. Someone gasped. Another whispered my name. Then I saw her, Tessa Grant. Same blonde hair, same blinding smile, except maybe a little heavier now, lines around her eyes. She froze, red Solo cup in hand. "Ava?" she breathed like she didn't believe it. "Still breathing," I said with a smile. She blinked, stunned. "Wow, you look incredible," I laughed. "Guess cows clean up nice, huh?" Her face drained of color. I never meant, but I was already walking away. That's when I saw Eli Harper. He was my high school crush. Football star, golden boy, The kind of guy who could ruin a life with a smirk. He hadn't looked twice at me back then, but when his eyes met mine now, something lit up. He grinned, came over, and handed me a drink. "Wow," he said, voice low. "You're a whole different person." "I burned the old one," I said. We talked for hours about jobs, life, regrets. He told me he'd gone into real estate, still lived in town, still single. By midnight, we were standing in the parking lot, the air thick with nostalgia and something dangerous. "Want to get out of here?" he asked. I nodded. Eli's apartment was a sleek loft downtown, polished concrete floors, expensive art, a minimalist couch. The kind of place that screamed money. We kissed like we'd been waiting 10 years for it. I barely noticed my stomach cramp until it hit me like a lightning bolt. My vision blurred, my throat went dry. "Eli," I gasped. "Something's wrong." I stumbled to the bathroom and collapsed to my knees, vomiting until I couldn't breathe. The last thing I saw before passing out was Eli's panicked face dialing 911. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, IV in my arm, nurse hovering. "You're lucky," she said softly. "Severe dehydration, malnutrition. You've been using semaglutide, right?" I nodded weakly. She sighed. "You have to stop. Your body's shutting down." Then I heard a familiar voice beside me. "Guess we've both been cheating," Eli said. I turned my head, and there he was, lying in the next bed over, hooked to his own IV. "What the hell?" I whispered. He gave a weak smile. "Been using the same stuff. Thought it'd help me get back in shape. Guess it helped me get in the hospital instead." We both laughed. It was pathetic, really. He told me he'd been part of an invite-only Reddit group for users like us. They called themselves the Shining Circle. They traded vials, mixed dosages, shared black market versions that supposedly worked faster and without side effects. I should have walked away. I didn't. A month later, Eli invited me in. He said, "The official stuff's watered down. This is the real thing." The first package came in a plain black box, no return address. Inside was a vial and a note that said, 1 shot per week. No refunds, no questions. And for a while it worked. No nausea, no weakness, just results. Our bodies became temples, our reflections addictive. Eli started taking shirtless photos every morning, watching the veins on his arms pop like he was sculpted from marble. He'd text me, "You ever feel like you're glowing?" I did, until the death started. A woman from the group collapsed in a sauna. Heart failure. Another vanished after posting about seeing things in the mirror. I tried to quit. Eli didn't. "You don't get it," he told me. "We're the next step. You really want to go back to who you were?" We fought. He screamed that I was jealous, that I didn't want him to be better than me. He stormed out, and that was the last time I saw him alive. 2 weeks later, police called. They found Eli's car parked by Lake Cedar, doors locked, keys still inside. His body was never recovered, but they found his phone. The last text he sent was to me, from Eli. "He's here. He says he can fix me. Don't take any more shots." I didn't know what it meant. Until one night, I got a message on the app from Ghost Newton. "You still shining, Ava?" My blood ran cold. That was the username Eli said ran the Shining Circle, the one who sold the real doses. I deleted the message, blocked the account. But the next day, a black box showed up on my doorstep. No return address, no note, just another vial. I didn't open it. I threw it in the trash. Months passed. I gained the weight back, fast, angry, unforgiving. I stopped checking my reflection, stopped answering calls. Then, one humid night in July, I was at a resort buffet in Florida, halfway through a plate of fried shrimp, when I saw him, Eli. He was massive, sweat glistening on his forehead, shirt clinging to his body, face bloated and red. He carried a tray piled with desserts. "Ava," he said out of breath. My fork clattered against my plate. "You're supposed to be..." He raised a hand. "Dead?" "Yeah, that's what I wanted them to think." He sat down across from me, wheezing. "I staged it. The car, the blood, everything. Had to. The circle was collapsing. People dying. Cops sniffing around." I stared, horrified. "You disappeared for this?" He smirked, picked up a donut, and bit into it. Guess I traded one addiction for another. His eyes darted around, paranoid. They're still out there, Ava. The real ones. The ones behind the vials. You think it's just some scam? It's bigger. Government labs, biotech fronts. They're testing things, changing people. Eli, stop, I said, my voice trembling. He leaned closer, frosting on his lips. They say Ghost Newton never dies. He just sheds his skin. Then he laughed. Loud, unhinged, crumbs sprang across the table. Maybe we were never meant to be thin, he said, patting his enormous stomach. Maybe we're meant to feed the thing that keeps us wanting. He stood up and walked away, leaving me sitting there, the air thick with sugar and sweat. I never saw him again. That night, I checked my phone before bed. One unread message. From unknown. Still shining? I dropped the phone, heart hammering. Then from the corner of my mirror, something moved. My reflection smiled before I did, and whispered, 1 shot per week. I screamed and smashed the glass. But even now sometimes, when I look into a clean surface, a window, a spoon, the black screen of my phone, I swear I see her. Not the fat girl, not the thin one. Something else entirely. Something that still wants to shine. Story 2. I never thought I'd look back at my teenage years and feel a chill run down my spine. Not because of what happened to me back then, but because of who I met. Her name was Haley Reeves, and for a long time, I thought she was my person. You know how people talk about soulmates, not just in love, but in friendship too? That was us, or at least I thought it was. We met when I was 12, the year my parents divorced. My mom moved us to a small town called Cedar Grove, a quiet patch of Oregon surrounded by pine trees and fog that rolled in like a living thing every morning. I was the new kid, awkward, quiet, always the one sitting at the edge of the cafeteria, hoping someone would notice me. Haley noticed. She had this wild red hair that never stayed brushed, a laugh that made people turn around, and a way of talking that made you feel like she already knew you. Within a week, we were inseparable. We'd walk home together, eat peanut butter sandwiches on her back porch, and talk about how we'd leave this town one day. She used to say, "You and me, Jules. We'll get out. We'll have our own apartment in the city. No rules, no parents, no limits." And I believed her. For years, we were sisters in everything but blood. Through high school breakups, bad haircuts, part-time jobs at the grocery store, Haley was there. I loved her like family. But sometimes love blinds you. When I turned 23, my life shifted in a way I didn't expect. After months of fatigue, weakness, and dizziness, doctors told me I had a neurological condition that would gradually affect my mobility. It wasn't terminal, but it was permanent. Within a year, I was using a wheelchair most of the time. The first few months were hell. My body felt like a cage, my independence shrinking day by day. I went through stages, anger, denial, grief, but eventually I adapted. I learned to move around my little one-story house on Maple Drive, customized a few things for easier access, and got on with life. And through all of that, Haley stayed. Or at least, that's what she said she was doing. She'd show up with takeout and wine, throw on old movies, talk about her latest relationship disasters, and tell me over and over, "Girl, you and me against the world." Always I believed her. So when she showed up one night, mascara smudged, with her boyfriend Derek standing awkwardly behind her and said, "Jules, I hate to ask, but can we stay with you for a bit, just until we get back on our feet?" I didn't think twice. I smiled and said the words that would ruin my peace. "Of course. Your family." The day they moved in, I made one simple request. "No big dogs, okay?" I said, as we carried boxes in. "You know my balance isn't great if I'm not in the chair. If a dog jumps on me or knocks me over..." Haley waved her hand dismissively, already laughing. "Relax, you know me. No dogs." Promise. I smiled, because of course I trusted her. 3 weeks later, I heard the scratching at the door. When I opened it, a massive, muscular pit bull barreled inside like a missile, nearly knocking over my chair. "Haley!" I shouted. She appeared from the hallway holding a wine glass, wearing one of my hoodies. "Oh, you met Luna," she said with a grin. "Haley, I told you." "She's sweet, Jules." "She's just a puppy," Derek added. tossing the dog a squeaky toy. But Luna wasn't sweet. She was chaos, jumping, biting, barking, tearing through the house like a storm. I love dogs, I really do, but I was terrified. Every time I left my wheelchair to move across the floor, Luna was there, leaping at me, licking, scratching, completely out of control. Haley would just laugh, yell "down" once, and go back to her phone. One morning it got worse. I crawled out to the backyard where I kept my wheelchair under the deck, something I did every morning, part of my routine. But the second I opened the door, the smell hit me, sharp, sour. I froze. My wheelchair was drenched, soaked through in dog urine. For a few seconds, I couldn't even move. I just stared. That chair wasn't a chair. It was my legs, my freedom, and it was ruined. "Haley!" I screamed. She appeared at the top of the deck, yawning, holding her coffee. "What?" "Your dog pissed all over my chair." She blinked, took a sip, and shrugged. "Oh, damn. Sorry, didn't notice that was it. Just sorry." I stared up at her, shaking, fury pounding through my chest. "You didn't notice? You didn't notice?" She rolled her eyes. "You don't have to yell, Jules." I spent the next hour hosing off my wheelchair while she stood there, watching. I was soaked, humiliated, and when I finally got into it, still dripping, I couldn't even look at her. Things only went downhill from there. They stopped cleaning. Trash piled up. Luna tore into garbage bags, dragging scraps across the hallway. One night I came home from class, rolled through the door, and the smell nearly made me gag. A bag had burst on the stairs, leaking rancid liquid everywhere. I couldn't even get to my room without rolling through it. I grabbed a marker and scrawled across the fridge in huge letters, "Clean up the trash in the hallway. This is disgusting." The next morning, Haley stormed in. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, pointing at the note. "It's the truth," I said coldly. She crossed her arms. "You could have just asked. You don't have to treat me like a kid. You mean like how I have to clean up after you?" "Like that?" She glared. "Wow, you've really changed, Jules. You used to be nice." "Yeah," I snapped, "and you used to care." After that, things got ugly. Passive-aggressive remarks, slammed doors, cold silences. Then her long black hair started clogging the shower. Every day it'd be matted in clumps along the tiles. I'd beg her to clean it. She'd just smile and say, "Oops, forgot." I'd gag peeling her hair off the drain, crying silently while I scrubbed tiles I didn't dirty. And then came the money. Derek lost his job. The bills, electricity, gas, internet, started falling on me. Every month they promised to pay me back. Every month, nothing. I started photographing receipts just to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Then one afternoon, I came home to find a strange woman sitting in the living room, watching TV. Hi?" I said. She turned to me, smiled. "Oh, you must be Julia." "I'm Marjorie, Haley's mom." Haley popped out of the kitchen. "Surprise! Mom's gonna stay here for a while. She's going through some stuff I froze." "How long is a while?" "Just until she finds her own place," Haley said. But a while turned into 4 months. Marjorie didn't pay rent. She didn't clean. She smoked inside, leaving ashes and cigarette burns on the counters. She used my towels, my shampoo, even my bed when I wasn't home. Every night I told myself I'd end it tomorrow. But I was afraid of confrontation, of what Haley might do. I felt trapped in my own home, until one day I snapped. "I'm moving out," I told them. "The lease is in my name, but I'm done. I'll take my bed, my chair, and my things. You all can stay here if you want, but I'm done." Haley's face twisted. "Wait, so where's my mom supposed to sleep then? That's not my problem." "You're seriously doing this?" she said, voice rising. "After everything I've done for you?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean destroying my house, my credit, and my peace?" "Yeah, after all that." That's when Marjorie stood up. Her voice dropped low, trembling with fury. "You ungrateful little bitch." I didn't even have time to react before her hand struck my face. The impact sent me tumbling from my chair, crashing to the floor. My head hit the hardwood with a sickening crack. "Mom!" Haley shouted, but she didn't say stop. She said, "You'll go to jail for hitting a disabled person." That was her concern, not me bleeding on the floor. Marjorie climbed on top of me, slapping, punching, her nails tearing into my skin. I curled up, screaming, my blood splattering across the wood. I crawled, hands shaking, toward my room, slammed the door, and called 911. When the cops came, Marjorie was still yelling, trying to get at me. They cuffed her, dragged her outside as she screamed, "You'll regret this." At the hospital, I sat under bright lights while a nurse cleaned the cuts on my face. Haley showed up. Derek stood behind her. "Please, Jules," Haley said softly, "don't press charges. You know how my mom is, she didn't mean it." And like a fool, I listened. I moved out the next day, loaded what was left of my life into a small U-Haul. My clothes, my chair, my dignity, what was left of it. They never paid me back. The landlord billed me for the damage. Scratched walls, stained carpet, dog piss in the baseboards. I didn't fight it. I just wanted to forget, but I couldn't, because sometimes people haunt you more than ghosts ever could. A month later, I got one last text from Haley. "You didn't have to make such a big deal out of it." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, "Rot in hell. Don't ever contact me again." And that was the last time I heard from her. I found out later they'd moved in with her aunt in Portland. I almost felt sorry for the woman. Almost. But every now and then, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I can still hear that voice in my head, the one that used to say, "You and me against the world." And I think about how wrong I was, because sometimes the thing you should have feared most was never outside your door. It was already sitting beside you, calling you best friend. Story 3. I never thought much about social media. Sure, I scrolled like everyone else, liked vacation photos, tagged friends in memes, occasionally posted a picture of my dog, Luna. But I never lived online the way some people did. I had a small circle of friends, a job that paid the rent, and a habit of deleting apps when life got overwhelming. Back then, life was simple enough. My name's Hannah Miles, 28 years old. I work as a customer support specialist for a mid-sized tech company in Cedar Falls, Oregon. Not Silicon Valley, but close enough to its echo that people wore Patagonia vests and carried iced coffees at 7 a.m. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom near the river, the kind of place that smelled faintly like old wood and rain. My job wasn't glamorous. I sat in front of 2 monitors all day answering customer tickets, troubleshooting bugs I barely understood, and trying to sound cheerful while my eyes ached from screen time. Still, it paid the bills. And after losing both my parents in my early 20s, stability, even dull stability, mattered. I didn't have much of a social life. A few coworkers I grabbed drinks with after work, a book club that mostly turned into wine night, and that was about it. But every once in a while, nostalgia got the better of me. That's what happened one Friday night last fall. I was half watching a documentary, half scrolling through Facebook when a "people you may know" suggestion popped up. Rachel Porter. I froze. Rachel and I had been best friends from 4th grade through high school. We grew up in a little town called Elkview, 2 hours away. Back then, we were inseparable. Sleepovers, matching friendship bracelets, whispered secrets about boys we'd never talked to. Rachel was bold and loud where I was shy. She'd sneak out to meet older guys, skip classes, lie to teachers with that effortless confidence I always envied. But by senior year, we drifted. It wasn't one thing, just the slow erosion that happens when you start realizing someone's darkness runs deeper than you thought. After graduation, Rachel dropped off the map. Rumors swirled. Rehab, an abusive boyfriend, even jail. But I never knew what was true. I hadn't thought about her in years. And yet there she was. Her profile picture was blurry, taken from too far away. Still, I recognized the curve of her jaw, the same brown eyes, just colder somehow. Her cover photo was an empty field. No caption, no updates, no posts, just that one picture. Without thinking, I clicked Add Friend. It was stupid. I knew it even as I did it. But something about seeing her name again made me curious. Maybe guilty. Like reconnecting might give closure to the girl I used to be. Within 5 minutes, she accepted. I smiled to myself. Nostalgia. Warm, harmless nostalgia. That's all it was. That night as I brushed my teeth, I saw I had a new message. It was from Rachel. Rachel, you look the same. Me. Wow, hey, it's been forever. How are you? Rachel, better now. I was hoping you'd find me. Something about that gave me pause. Hoping I'd find her? I typed back. Me. I just saw you pop up in my suggestions. Crazy, right? Rachel. Not really. I've been watching your profile for a while. My stomach dropped a little. Me. Haha, stalking me? Rachel. I missed you. Then she went offline. I stared at the screen for a few minutes, unsettled, but I told myself she was just being weirdly sentimental. People got like that online sometimes. The next morning, I found a new message waiting. Rachel, do you still live alone on Sycamore Street? My heart thudded. That wasn't something she should have known. I'd moved to Cedar Falls 3 years earlier. I'd never posted my address. I stared at the message, typing and deleting responses before finally sending, Me. How do you know that? The typing bubbles appeared, then disappeared. Nothing. I locked my phone and tried to shake it off, telling myself she probably saw a tagged photo or a mutual connection. But later that night, when I went to take Luna out, I noticed something strange. Across the street, under the flickering streetlight, was a car I'd never seen before. An old silver Honda Civic. It idled there for a moment, headlights dimmed before pulling away slowly. That's when I remembered. Rachel used to drive a silver Civic in high school. I didn't sleep well that night. Monday at work, I tried to distract myself. The office was the usual hum of keyboards and bad coffee smells. My coworker Eli, a friendly IT guy, stopped by my desk. You good? He asked. You look like you haven't slept. I smiled weakly. Just weird dreams. He chuckled. Join the club. As he turned to leave, my monitor flickered. For a split second, my wallpaper changed to a field, the same one from Rachel's cover photo. I froze. Eli, I called softly, can you check something? My screen just glitched. He came over, squinting. Could be a remote access bug. You download anything weird? I shook my head. He ran a quick scan, shrugged. Looks fine now. Probably nothing, but it didn't feel like nothing. That night, another message appeared. Rachel, why didn't you answer last night? Me, you scared me, Rachel. Rachel, you were supposed to be scared. You always needed fear to pay attention. Me, what are you talking about? Rachel, you left me. Me, we grew up, that's all. Rachel, no, you left me there. That one made no sense. Me, where? Rachel, you know where. Then she sent a photo. It took me a second to recognize it. A screenshot of a newspaper clipping. Body found near abandoned cabin in Elkview. A girl's name was blacked out. I slammed my laptop shut so hard Luna barked. My hands were shaking. It couldn't be real. Rachel was alive. She just messaged me. But something deep inside me, something I hadn't thought about in years, stirred. That cabin. We used to go there, out past Miller Creek, deep in the woods. We'd drink cheap beer, smoke stolen cigarettes, talk about getting out of that town. One night, everything went wrong. I hadn't thought about it in years for a reason, because the last time I saw Rachel in person was that night. It was early spring, our senior year. Rachel had been drinking, fighting with her boyfriend Caleb, a mean, jealous type. She'd begged me to drive her out to the cabin, said she needed to clear her head. I did. We argued in the woods, about her skipping graduation, about her taking things too far. She screamed that I was just like everyone else, that I didn't really care. I left her there. She was alive when I drove off. That was the last time I saw her. The next day, she didn't show up at school. Her mom said she ran away. Now, all these years later, her name was on my screen again. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called in sick and drove to the police station. I told them about the messages about Rachel. The officer on duty, Detective Moore, listened carefully. You're saying she's been contacting you? Yes, she's sending me photos. She knows where I live. He frowned. When did you last see her? I hesitated. 12 years ago. Moore leaned back. Ma'am, Rachel Porter was found dead near Elkview in 2013. The case went cold after a few months. I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. That's not possible, I whispered. She's messaging me. He glanced at the printout I'd brought. Can we keep this? We'll check if it's coming from a spoofed account, I nodded numbly. When I got home that night, my front door was unlocked. Nothing looked stolen, but the framed photo on my dresser, me and Rachel at age 15, was gone. In its place was a folded note. You shouldn't have left me. I barely remembered the days that followed. Sleep became impossible. Every creak in the apartment sounded like footsteps. My laptop camera stayed covered with tape. Still, I kept seeing glitches. That same field flashing on my monitor. Notifications popping up from accounts I didn't recognize. Then came the email. No subject line. One sentence. I'm not on your screen anymore. Attached was a video file. Eli from IT stopped by the next morning to check on me. He found me shaking on the couch. Laptop open, but the screen black. Hannah, what's wrong? I think she's here, I stammered. Rachel, she's... He looked at the laptop. You opened it, didn't you? I nodded. The color drained from his face. That wasn't a safe file. It was live feed. From your webcam, my blood went cold. Then who was on the screen? He swallowed. You were. But there was someone standing behind you. I moved out of Cedar Falls 2 weeks later. The police said they couldn't trace the messages. All routed through servers overseas, all wiped clean. Detective Moore promised to keep the case open, but his eyes told me he'd already given up. I changed my number, deleted my social accounts, started therapy, but sometimes late at night, when my phone buzzes with a notification, I still flinch. Because sometimes it's blank, just a black image, time-stamped at 3:12 a.m. The same time Rachel died. And sometimes, if I look closely enough, I swear I can see two figures in the reflection. One sitting, one standing, just behind her shoulder, waiting. Because ghosts don't always haunt houses. Sometimes they haunt the ones who left them behind. Story 4. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who looked back at my early 20s and felt haunted. Not by ghosts, exactly, but by the choices I made and the people I let back into my life when I should have known better. My name's Emily Carson. I'm 26 now, and I live in a small apartment on the east side of Ridgeview, Illinois. But this story, it started 5 years ago when I was 21, broke and stuck in the kind of rut you don't even realize you've fallen into until you look up and can't see daylight anymore. Back then, I worked at a diner off Highway 41 called Penny's Place. It was the kind of spot where the neon sign flickered more than it worked. The coffee always tasted faintly like burnt toast, and the booths were patched with duct tape. My shifts ran late, 5 p.m. to midnight most nights, and I'd walk home to my tiny apartment that sat over a laundromat. The floors creaked, the radiator hissed, and the smell of detergent never really went away. I told myself it was temporary. I'd save up, maybe go back to school, maybe finally start writing again. But the truth was, I was lonely. My mom had moved to Arizona after my dad died, and I didn't have anyone nearby. Just coworkers who clocked out and disappeared, and a cat named Luna who barely tolerated me. Then one Thursday night, while I was scrolling through Facebook on my lunch break, I saw the invite. Ridgeview High, class of 2016 meetup. Come grab drinks, catch up, and relive old times. Normally, I would have ignored it. I wasn't exactly the kind of person who looked back on high school fondly. But then I saw the name on the guest list that stopped me cold. Samantha Rhodes. Sam. God, that name hit me like a sucker punch. She had been my best friend once. We met in 8th grade. Two awkward girls who didn't fit anywhere else. We used to spend hours on the hill behind my old house, watching the lights from town and talking about how we were going to leave Ridgeview someday. She was fearless, magnetic, the kind of girl who could walk into a room and make everyone look. I was quieter, more cautious. But together we balanced each other out. At least we used to. By junior year, something changed. Sam fell in with a different crowd, the kids who cut class to smoke behind the gym, who thought it was funny to get detention. I tried to keep up at first, but she became sharper, crueler, the kind of person who'd smile while twisting the knife. By the time we graduated, we weren't even speaking. Still, seeing her name stirred something I didn't want to admit. Curiosity, maybe nostalgia, maybe loneliness. Against my better judgment, I clicked going. The bar where the meetup was held was called the Rusty Anchor, though it had nothing to do with boats. Just another dimly lit dive on Main Street. I got there late, wearing a black jacket I'd bought from a thrift store and shoes that pinched my toes. The place smelled like beer and old wood, and the jukebox was playing something from the early 2000s. I was halfway through a watery gin and tonic when I saw her, Sam. She hadn't changed much. Same honey blonde hair, same confident smirk. She spotted me almost immediately. "Emmy?" she said, her voice slicing through the noise. I froze. Nobody had called me that in years. "Sam," I said, forcing a smile. "Wow, you look exactly the same." She laughed, that same laugh I'd missed without realizing it. "God, it's been forever." "Come here." She hugged me tight, too tight. When she pulled back, her hands stayed on my shoulders, eyes scanning my face like she was searching for something. "You still bite your lip when you're nervous?" she said. I blinked. I didn't even realize I still did that. She grinned. "You always were predictable." For the next 2 hours, it was like being pulled into a time warp. We caught up. She told me she was back in Ridgeview after a rough patch. Said she was living in a rental house near Sycamore Hill, working odd jobs. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. I told her I was working at Penny's place, trying to get back on my feet. "You always deserved more than that," she said softly. "You were the smart one, remember?" Something in me cracked a little at that. No one had called me smart in years. By the end of the night, when she asked if I wanted to hang out again sometime, I said yes. At first it was nice. We started meeting once or twice a week. Coffee runs, long drives through the back roads, sitting in her living room drinking cheap wine and reminiscing. She was funny again, alive in a way I hadn't seen anyone be in a long time. But there was something different too, something underneath. Her humor had a sharp edge now. She'd talk about people like they were chess pieces. She'd say things like, "Most folks don't realize how easy they are to manipulate." Then she'd laugh, but her eyes wouldn't. One night she said, "You know, I used to think we'd run this town someday." Just the two of us, I laughed nervously. "You always wanted to be Bonnie and Clyde." Her lips curved into a half smile. Maybe we still could be. A few weeks later, she asked me for a favor. "Can you drive me somewhere tonight?" she said, like it was no big deal. "Just a quick stop." Across town it was raining, and I was exhausted from a double shift, but she looked at me with that same expectant smirk I remembered from high school, the one that made it feel impossible to say no. "Fine," I sighed. We drove 20 minutes through back roads until she pointed to an old boarded-up house on the outskirts of town. "Wait here," she said, stepping out into the rain. 10 minutes passed. 15. I was about to get out and check when she came back, dripping wet and holding a black backpack. "Drive." Her voice was different, low, hard. I didn't ask questions. Not then. Later that night, while she was in the bathroom, I peeked inside the backpack. My stomach dropped. Bundles of cash, wads of it. 10s, 20s, 50s. When she came out, she caught me staring. Her expression didn't even flicker. "Don't worry about it, Em," she said, her tone light but her eyes cold. "Some people owed me, that's all." "Owed you?" I stammered. She smiled faintly. "You want in?" "I could use a partner." I shook my head. "No, Sam, I can't be part of whatever this is." She smirked. "You always say that, but you're still here." After that, things got blurry. She'd show up at my apartment unannounced, always with that same backpack, always with stories that didn't quite add up. She'd slip me money when I was short on rent, or buy my groceries, or hand me gas cash without me asking. "See, I take care of you," she'd say. "That's what friends do." "Someday, maybe you'll return the favor." Every kindness came with strings I didn't see until they were wrapped tight around me. Then came the night she showed up shaking. "Can I crash here?" "Just for tonight," she said. I let her in. She slept on my couch, still in her boots. When I woke up the next morning, She was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking my coffee, staring at nothing. "You're the only person I can trust," she said. "Everyone else would sell me out, but not you. You're solid." My throat was dry. "Sam, what's going on?" She looked at me and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You think you're better than me, don't you? But you're not. You've got darkness in you too. You just hide it better." I wanted to laugh it off, but her voice was too calm, too certain. That's when I realized I wasn't her friend. I was her tether. The breaking point came a few weeks later. She asked me to drive her again. I said no. Her expression changed instantly, like a mask slipping. "You're not going to flake on me, are you?" "I can't, Sam. I don't even know what you're doing anymore." Her jaw tightened. "I covered your rent, Em. I fed you when you were broke. You think that was out of charity? You owe me. I didn't ask you to." "Doesn't matter. You're in it now." She stormed out. For 2 weeks, I didn't hear from her. Then one night, she showed up at Penny's place, sliding into a booth like any other customer. She ordered black coffee. When I brought it over, she grabbed my wrist. Too hard. "You've been ignoring me," she said. "I've been busy." Her nails dug into my skin. "Don't lie to me. You think you can just cut me off? You wouldn't even have a roof over your head without me." I yanked my hand free, voice trembling. "We're done, Sam." "I mean it. Don't come back here." Her smile returned, slow and cold. "We'll see." She stood, dropped a 20 on the table, and walked out. That was the last time I saw her. It's been almost 5 years now. Sometimes when I walk home late at night, I swear I see a familiar car parked across the street from my apartment. A dark blue sedan with a dented bumper. It's always gone by morning. Sometimes my phone buzzes with an unknown number. When I answer, there's nothing, just silence. Once I came home to find an envelope slid under my door. Inside was a single Polaroid, me at work, smiling behind the counter at Penny's place, written on the back in red ink. Still predictable. I moved apartments a week later, changed my number, but I still check my window every night before I sleep. Because deep down, I know Sam never really left Ridgeview. And worse, she never really let me go. Story 5. I never thought a single afternoon from childhood could follow me into adulthood like a ghost, but it did. Even now in my mid-30s, every time I drop my daughter off at school, I get that same chill crawling up my neck. That strange, tight feeling in my chest that reminds me how fragile life really is. It's funny how memory works. You think you've moved on, that you've buried the past under mortgages and parent-teacher meetings. But then a sound, the bell ringing, the shuffle of sneakers on blacktop, brings everything back. I grew up in Maple Springs, Indiana, a small town that never seemed to change. Back then, life was simple. My dad worked at the local hardware store. My mom taught piano out of our living room. And my world revolved around two things: school and my best friend, Ethan Cole. Ethan was a year older than me, a wiry kid with a mop of blonde hair and the kind of confidence that made teachers alternately adore and scold him. If I was the quiet one, the rule follower, Ethan was pure chaos in sneakers. He climbed higher, ran faster, talked louder, and somehow he always made you want to follow him. We both went to Brookview Elementary, a squat, L-shaped brick building with paint peeling from the windowsills and a playground that smelled like rust and sun-baked asphalt. Every day after lunch, recess meant 25 minutes of freedom. Tag, kickball, and pretending we were superheroes leaping from the jungle gym. But I'll never forget that one April afternoon, because that was the day everything changed. That morning, Ethan and I had our first real fight. It started over something small, stupid really. I had this brand new pack of scented markers my mom had bought me after I'd aced my spelling test. 12 colors, all neatly capped and lined up in a plastic case that snapped shut with a satisfying click. To a 6-year-old, that was treasure. Ethan had asked to borrow them during art. I said no. He grinned, waited until I looked away, and swiped the whole pack. When I saw him scribbling a stick figure with my wildberry marker, I felt my face burn. "Ethan! Those are mine," I hissed across the table. He didn't even look up. "Relax, Sam. I'm just borrowing them. You didn't ask. He shrugged. You're such a baby sometimes. That stung. I'd always been the cautious one, and he knew it. I wanted to shout, to grab them back, but Mrs. Riley was walking by, and I didn't want to get in trouble. So I sat there, stewing, as Ethan doodled his little comic strip and smirked at me like he'd won something. By the time recess rolled around, I decided I'd get him back. Not in a mean way, just a little revenge. Something to wipe that smug look off his face. The playground that day shimmered with heat. The sun was bright, the air smelled faintly like cut grass, and the teachers stood in clumps by the doors, chatting and sipping coffee from foam cups. Ethan drifted toward the far end of the blacktop near the old wing of the school, the part nobody used anymore. It had boarded windows and a locked door where paint flaked off the frame like scabs. Most kids didn't go near it. Curious and still angry, I followed him, keeping a little distance so he wouldn't notice. That's when I saw the car. A blue sedan sat just beyond the chain-link fence, engine running softly, a puff of exhaust curling into the spring air. The passenger door was open, and a man was sitting inside. He looked wrong somehow. His baseball cap was pulled low, hiding most of his face. His arm rested across the steering wheel like he'd been there a while. Then slowly he leaned across the seat and held something out toward Ethan. Something shiny and wrapped in plastic. Candy. At least that's what it looked like. "Hey, buddy," the man said, voice low but friendly. "You want some chocolate? Got a whole box in here." Ethan stopped just short of the fence, eyes wide. I didn't move. My heart was thumping, but not from fear. Not yet. I was 5. I didn't really understand danger. What confused me was how quiet everything felt. Even the shouts from the other kids seemed far away. The man gestured again. "Come on, it's okay. Just open the gate, grab a few. You like candy, don't you?" Ethan hesitated, one hand clutching the wire fence. He was so close I could see the sunlight glinting off his hair. Something mean and childish sparked in my chest. I thought of my stolen markers, his smug grin. Maybe this was my chance to ruin his fun. So I shouted, "Ethan! Mrs. Riley's calling for you. She said you're in trouble." He turned fast, scowling. "No, she's not." "Yeah, she is," I said loud enough for the teachers to hear. "She said you're not supposed to be over there." Ethan's face twisted with fury. "Shut up, Sam!" But before he could say anything else, the man in the car jerked upright. He slammed the door shut so hard the sound cracked across the lot. The driver, who I hadn't even noticed, floored the gas. The sedan spun around, tires spitting gravel, and disappeared down the back road in seconds. Ethan spun toward the fence, stunned. Then he turned on me. "You scared him away," he yelled, his little fist clenched, tears stinging his eyes. "He was giving me candy." I didn't get it, I laughed. "You shouldn't talk to strangers, dummy." "I hate you," he shouted, and he lunged at me. We started chasing each other, our sneakers slapping the pavement. That's when a sharp whistle cut through the air. Mrs. Riley. She grabbed us both by the shoulders. "What on earth is going on here?" she snapped. Ethan, still crying, pointed toward the road. That man was going to give me candy and Sam scared him away. Her face changed instantly. The irritation vanished. "What man?" she asked quietly. Ethan sniffled, pointing again. "In the blue car. He said he had candy." Mrs. Riley's coffee cup hit the ground. She didn't even notice. She blew her whistle again. Harder this time. The sound was sharp, urgent, like an alarm. "All of you, line up. Inside, right now!" The teachers shouted across the playground, calling names, herding kids toward the doors. A few groaned, thinking recess was over early. Nobody understood what was happening. I remember Ethan looking at me, confused and angry, while Mrs. Riley walked us inside with her jaw tight. She didn't speak again until the door was shut behind us and the blinds were drawn. "Listen to me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "If someone you don't know ever talks to you, anyone, you don't go near them. You don't take anything. You run and find an adult, you understand?" We all mumbled yes. I didn't understand why she looked so scared. That night, my mom got a phone call. I could hear her voice through the wall. Low, tense. When she came into my room later, she sat on the edge of my bed and just looked at me for a while. "Did anything strange happen at school today?" she asked carefully. I nodded. "A man in a blue car tried to give Ethan candy." Her face went pale. She hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. The next morning, the police were at school. They parked by the old wing, asked questions, showed photos. A few kids said they'd seen the car before. Once near the bus stop, another time by the baseball field after practice. For the rest of that year, there was always a security guard stationed near the playground. The teachers stopped letting us near the fence, and for a while everything felt normal again. But it never really was. Ethan moved away a year later. His dad got a job in Michigan. We promised to write letters, but we never did. Kids never do. By the time I hit high school, I'd almost forgotten about that day, until I saw a news segment one night. My mom was in the kitchen washing dishes, the TV murmuring in the background. A local reporter stood outside a gas station in another town. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Attempted abduction, suspect arrested in Marion County." The picture was grainy, but I knew that face, the sunken eyes, the scruffy beard, the same crooked baseball cap. That was him, the man in the blue sedan. Police said he'd been wanted for questioning in multiple disappearances across the Midwest, mostly young boys between 5 and 7 years old. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, realizing what could have happened, what almost did, and what truly haunts me, even now, isn't just that Ethan nearly got in that car. It's that if he hadn't taken my markers that morning, if I hadn't followed him out of anger, if I hadn't shouted when I did, he might have vanished, just like the others. It's been 30 years. I've got 2 kids now, Grace, 8, and Leo, 6. Every morning when I drop them off at Cedar Hill Elementary, I watch them walk through those doors until I can't see them anymore. And some mornings, when I catch sight of a car parked just a little too long by the curb, or a stranger watching from behind tinted glass, my heart starts to hammer, because I still remember that sound, the click of the car door, the crunch of gravel, and I know how close we came to being another headline. Ethan and I reconnected last year through Facebook. He's married, living in Michigan, has 3 kids of his own. We talked for hours, mostly about old times, the dumb things we did. But when I brought up that day in the car, the candy, he went quiet. Then he said softly, "Yeah, I think about that too, Sam." We didn't say anything for a while after that, because some memories never fade. They just wait, behind fences, in the corners of schoolyards, reminding you how thin the line is between safety and loss. Story 6, I never thought I'd see Tyler Jennings again. Back in high school, he was the kind of best friend you never forget. The guy who pulled you into trouble, but somehow made you feel alive doing it. We played football together, skipped class to drive around the back roads of our small Pennsylvania town, snuck into movie theaters, and stayed up until 3 a.m., talking about life like we had it all figured out. That was more than a decade ago. I'm 30 now, living a quiet life in a town called Fairview, Pennsylvania. Not the kind of place that makes headlines. 2 traffic lights, a diner, a feed store, and a half-empty strip mall. I work for a home renovation company, mostly restoring old houses. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and after years of bouncing between jobs, I've learned to appreciate steady. Tyler, though, he was different. He always wanted more. He used to say, "Man, I'm not gonna rot in this place. I'll go somewhere warm, make something of myself." And he did leave, right after graduation. No college, no goodbye, just gone. The last time I heard his name was maybe 8 years back, when someone said he'd been living down south, Georgia, maybe Alabama, and had gotten into some trouble. Nobody knew exactly what that meant, but with Tyler, trouble always followed him like a shadow. So when I got a message from him last winter, after 12 years of silence, it felt like seeing a ghost pop up in my inbox. "Hey man, been a long time. You free this weekend? Want to grab a beer?" For a long minute, I just stared at the screen. My first thought was that it had to be a scam, or maybe someone using his old account. But curiosity got the better of me. I typed back, "Yeah, man, been forever." "Where you at these days?" he replied almost instantly. Back in Fairview, just for a bit, let's hit Murphy's Friday night. Murphy's was the local bar. Sticky floors, neon lights, same old jukebox that played the same 6 country songs. It hadn't changed since high school. When Friday rolled around, I almost didn't go. Something in my gut told me not to. But nostalgia's a funny thing. It pulls you in even when you know better. When I walked into Murphy's, Tyler was already there. He was sitting in the back booth near the dartboard, wearing a gray hoodie and a faded baseball cap. For a second, I didn't recognize him. He looked thinner, hollow even. His face was sharper, like all the laughter we used to share had been scraped away. His eyes had dark circles under them, and his hands twitched slightly on the table. But when he looked up and grinned, for just a moment I saw the old Tyler again. "No Fing Wei," he said, standing and pulling me into a hug. "Dude, look at you!" "You haven't changed a damn bit," I laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Speak for yourself, man. You look like you just came out of a cave." He smirked. "Feels like it." We ordered beers and wings. The conversation started easy. Old stories, old teachers, mutual friends. It almost felt like slipping back into a pair of worn shoes. But as the night went on, I started noticing things. The way Tyler's eyes darted to the window every few minutes. How he jumped a little every time someone opened the bar door. Then he asked something that made the hair on my neck stand up. "You ever see something out the corner of your eye?" he said, voice low. "Like someone standing there, watching you?" I frowned. "You mean, like, thinking you see something that's not there?" He nodded slowly, his fingers tightening around his beer. "Yeah, only it is there," I chuckled uneasily. "You sure you're not just paranoid, man?" He didn't laugh. "Nah, I've seen them. The shadows. They follow me." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You okay, Ty? You on something?" His eyes met mine. Glassy, serious, scared. "No, man. I wish I was. It started a few months ago. At night, mostly. I'd wake up and they'd be there, standing in the corner. Not like ghosts, more like outlines. People without faces. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they just stand and watch Jesus." I shifted in my seat. "You been sleeping okay?" He laughed. Not a happy laugh, but the kind you make when you've given up. "Barely. That's why I came back. I thought maybe if I left the place I was in, maybe they'd stop." When we left the bar, it was close to midnight. The parking lot was half empty, the air biting cold. Tyler grabbed my arm before I could unlock my truck. His grip was cold, ice cold. "You should come by tomorrow," he said. "We'll hang out. Catch up more." "Yeah, sure. Where you staying?" He hesitated, then said, "The old Dawson place, out on Briar Hollow Road." I froze. The Dawson house was an old 2-story farmhouse out by the woods, abandoned for years. We used to dare each other to go there when we were kids, but no one ever did. Everyone in town said it was haunted. Not the kind of haunted where you hear footsteps, but the kind where people said they felt watched. "Why the hell are you staying there?" I asked. "Cheap," he said with a smirk, "and quiet. I just need somewhere off the grid for a while. You'll see." "Come by tomorrow night," I wanted to say no. Every instinct in me screamed to stay away, but I didn't want to seem like a coward, or worse, like I didn't care. So I said yes. The next evening, I drove out to Briar Hollow. The road curved through the woods, cracked and uneven, lined with leafless trees that clawed at the sky. My headlights cut through the darkness, catching old mailboxes and abandoned driveways. When I reached the Dawson property, I slowed to a crawl. The house looked worse than I remembered. Sagging roof, broken windows, ivy crawling up the sides. A single light flickered in an upstairs window. I parked and sat for a second, engine idling, heart pounding. When I finally knocked on the door, it creaked open almost instantly. Tyler stood there, smiling faintly. "You came." The smell hit me first. Damp, mold, something earthy and rotten underneath. The inside was stripped bare except for a mattress on the floor, a few plastic grocery bags, and a lantern casting orange light against the warped walls. "Home sweet home," he said, handing me a beer. I looked around. "You really staying here?" He shrugged. Better than most of the places I've been. We sat on the floor. For a while it felt normal again. Two friends catching up, laughing about dumb teenage stuff. But as the night deepened, Tyler got quieter. He kept glancing at the window. At one point I heard something, faint, like a scratching from outside. "What was that?" I asked. Tyler didn't look up. Don't what? Don't look." The air felt thick suddenly, heavy. My ears rang faintly, like the silence was pressing against me. Then came the tapping, soft, deliberate, like fingertips on glass. "Tyler," I whispered, "what the hell is that?" He shook his head, pale as chalk. "They found me again." The tapping turned to scraping, long, slow drags across the outside of the house. Then, faint whispering, not words I could understand, just sounds, almost like breathing, right against the walls. "Jesus Christ," I said, standing up. "Who's out there?" Tyler grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. "Not who?" I froze. The lantern flickered once, twice, then went out. The room plunged into darkness. Something cold brushed against the back of my neck. Tyler screamed. I spun around, fumbling for my phone. The flashlight cut through the dark, but Tyler was gone. The door was still locked. I tore through the house, shouting his name. Checked every room, every closet, even the basement that stank like decay. Nothing. No footprints outside. No broken glass. Just silence. I left around dawn, heart still hammering, skin crawling with goosebumps. I went straight to the sheriff's office, told them everything. They searched the Dawson place top to bottom. No sign of Tyler. The only thing they found was his phone, smashed to pieces near the mattress. They asked if maybe we'd been drinking too much. Maybe Tyler wandered off. I told them no. Told them what I'd seen, what I'd heard. The sheriff, a big man with gray stubble, looked at me like I was losing it. "Son," he said, "that house has been empty 30 years. Ain't no one named Tyler Jennings in any state records I can find." "You sure you're not mixed up?" I insisted. Gave them the Facebook messages. When they checked the account, it was gone. Deleted. No trace. That was 3 years ago. Sometimes I tell myself I imagined it, that maybe I fell asleep drunk and dreamed the whole thing. But then, every few months, I'll get that same chill. I'll be driving down Briar Hollow Road late at night when the fog starts to roll in, and there he'll be, standing on the shoulder of the road, pale, thin, watching me with those same hollow eyes. The first time I slammed on the brakes. By the time I look back, he was gone. But now I don't stop, because I've started seeing something else. A shadow in the back seat of my truck, moving, breathing. Sometimes it whispers. And every time I hear Tyler's voice, faint and broken. "Told you they'd find me." Story 7. I hadn't seen Ethan Briggs in nearly 15 years when he called me out of the blue last winter. Back in middle school, Ethan and I had been inseparable. Two awkward kids trying to survive small-town boredom in rural Pennsylvania. We spent our summers riding bikes through fields, trading Pokemon cards, sneaking into the old quarry at night, even when our parents told us not to. Then high school hit, and our lives took different turns. My dad got transferred. We moved 2 hours south, and Ethan's family stayed behind. We promised to keep in touch, but that promise faded like every teenage friendship eventually does. I hadn't thought about him in years, not until that call. It was a Tuesday night. I was sitting in my apartment in Pittsburgh, watching muted basketball highlights on TV while half-eating leftover pizza. My phone buzzed. The number was unknown but local. I almost ignored it, until I saw the voicemail notification pop up. His voice was unmistakable. "Hey, Sam? It's Ethan Briggs. I know it's been forever, man, but I really need to talk to you. It's about the old house, the one on Briar Hollow. Call me back, please." I froze. That house, the Briggs family home, was a 2-story colonial on the edge of town, sitting behind an overgrown line of pines. Everyone in school knew about it, the weird, creaking place that always looked too dark, even during the day. Ethan used to joke that it ate light. When we were 12, I spent a summer practically living there. Sleepovers, video games, comic books spread across the floor. But there was something about that house I could never shake. I used to hear things at night, whispers that seemed to come from the walls. Ethan always brushed it off. Old house, man, he'd laugh. You just gotta ignore it. I called him back. He answered on the first ring. Sam. You actually called. He sounded older, tired, like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. Yeah, I said slowly. You said something about the old house? A pause. Yeah, I moved back in. After my mom passed last month, I didn't know what to say. Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't even know. Yeah, he murmured. It's okay. Just weird being back here. You know how some places just feel like they're waiting for you? I frowned. Waiting for you? He laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. You'll see. You should come visit. Seriously, I could use a hand fixing a few things around here. I'll buy you dinner. We can catch up. Something about his tone made me agree before I even thought it through. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe guilt, or maybe it was the fact that he sounded scared. I drove up that weekend. It was early December, gray skies and frost on the fields. Briar Hollow Road was just as I remembered. Long, quiet, lined with houses that hadn't seen fresh paint since the Clinton administration. The Briggs house sat at the far end, half hidden by bare trees. It looked worse than I remembered. The white siding had gone gray. The porch sagged, the gutters drooped. A wind chime clattered in the cold breeze, making a thin metallic sound that got under your skin. Ethan came out to meet me before I even parked. He looked different, gaunt. His eyes had that hollow look of someone who hadn't slept. His hair, once messy blonde, was starting to gray at the sides. Sam, he said, forcing a smile. Man, you look exactly the same. You don't, I said, trying to keep it light. He laughed once, sharp and humorless. Yeah, life will do that. Inside, the house smelled faintly of mildew and something else. Something metallic, like rust or old blood. I tried to shake the thought. The furniture was all the same, just older. The same coffee table with one leg propped up by an old phone book. The same painting of a river his mom used to love. But the air felt heavy. It was the kind of silence that made you whisper without meaning to. We sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee that tasted like burnt plastic. So how have you been? I asked. You still working construction? Off and on, he said. I've been mostly here. Cleaning up, trying to get the place ready to sell. You living alone? He nodded. Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it. The way he said that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. That night after dinner, we cracked open a couple beers and ended up in the living room, talking about old times. The sun went down around 5, and by 8 the house was pitch black outside the windows. Every so often I thought I heard something upstairs, a dull thud, like a box falling over. Ethan would pause mid-sentence, his eyes flicking toward the ceiling, then go right back to talking like nothing happened. Finally I asked, Hey man, are you hearing that too? He swallowed hard. Yeah, that started a couple weeks ago. Probably the pipes, right? He gave me a long look. You still think that after all these years? I didn't know how to respond. When we were kids, we both heard things in that house. Voices coming from the hall when no one else was home. I remember waking up one night and seeing the attic door open, even though Ethan swore his mom kept it locked. He used to say, "It's just old wood settling." That's what Mom says, but I never believed it. And now, seeing him again, I could tell he didn't either. Around midnight, Ethan offered to set me up in the guest room, his old room from when we were kids. The same poster still hung on the wall. The Dark Knight, Metallica, a sun-bleached baseball pennant. The floorboards creaked under my steps. The air smelled faintly like dust and cold air, seeping through unseen cracks. "Hey," I said as he turned to leave. "What did you mean earlier? That it doesn't feel like you're alone?" He hesitated in the doorway. "Sometimes I wake up and the lights are on downstairs. I turn them off, go back to bed, and when I get up again, they're back on. Or sometimes I'll find doors open. The back door, the hall closet, like someone's walking around when I'm asleep. Maybe you just forgot." He shook his head. "No, I've got motion sensors. They trip every time. But when I check the footage," he trailed off. "When you check the footage, what?" He looked at me. eyes glassy in the dim light. There's nothing there. Just shadows moving like something's trying to hide from the camera. I didn't sleep much that night. The house made sounds. Not random creaks, but deliberate ones. Slow, dragging footsteps across the floor above me. The faint click of a door handle turning somewhere down the hall. Every time I almost drifted off, something new would start. The sound of whispering, so faint I couldn't tell if it was real or in my head. At around 3 a.m., I heard Ethan's voice from the hallway. "Sam!" It was quiet, urgent. I sat up. "Yeah?" He was standing in the doorway, pale in the dim light. "You heard it too, didn't you?" I nodded slowly. "Someone's walking upstairs." He swallowed. "There's no upstairs." For a second, I didn't understand. Then it hit me. When we were kids, there had been an attic, not a second floor. The stairs stopped at a locked door. His mom always told us not to go up there, said it was dangerous. But now, I could hear the clear rhythm of footsteps pacing above us. "Come on," Ethan whispered, grabbing a flashlight. We climbed the narrow staircase at the end of the hall. The air grew colder with each step. The attic door, thick, paint-chipped, stood closed. He turned the handle. It creaked open on its own. The smell hit first. Damp rot, like something left to die and forgotten. The flashlight flickered. The beam swept across old boxes, stacks of yellowed newspapers, an old rocking chair that looked too new to belong here. Then the chair moved, just slightly, back and forth, back and forth. Ethan whispered, "Mom used to say she heard him rocking." "Who?" He didn't answer. He was staring at something behind me. I turned. At the far end of the attic stood a tall, dark shape. Not quite a person, more like a human outline made of shadow. It was facing the wall, motionless. The flashlight flickered again, then died. We stumbled backward, down the stairs, slamming the door shut behind us. Ethan locked it and pressed his back against the wall, breathing hard. "Who the hell was that?" I shouted. He was shaking. "It's not a who. It's him." He never left that night. We didn't sleep. We sat in the living room with every light on. Ethan told me the rest. His mom had always believed the house was haunted by the man who built it, a carpenter named Gerald Oates, who disappeared in the 1950s. The rumor was he went mad after his wife left him. Some said he hung himself in the attic. Others said he sealed himself inside the walls. "When I was a kid," Ethan said, "I thought it was just a story. But before she died, my mom told me something. She said she'd see him sometimes, standing in the doorway at night, watching me sleep by dawn. We were both too exhausted to speak. The sun broke through the window like nothing had happened. I wanted to leave. Every bone in my body screamed to get out. But Ethan asked me to stay one more night. He said he wanted to finish something. I shouldn't have agreed." That evening, he went up to the attic again. I tried to stop him. "Don't," I said. "We can leave. Call someone. Sell the place." He shook his head. "I have to know. He talks to me sometimes. I need to know what he wants." "What are you talking about?" He gave me this weak smile. "You'll see." An hour later, I heard a loud thud from above. I called his name. No answer. I ran up the stairs. The attic door stood wide open. The air felt electric, thick with static. "Ethan!" I stepped inside. The flashlight on the floor was still rolling in slow circles. The rocking chair was empty. But on the wall, written in something dark, were words I'll never forget. "He belongs here now." The police found no sign of Ethan. No footprints, no open windows, no blood. Just his phone on the floor and his car still in the driveway. They ruled it a missing person case. I told them everything I could, but it sounded insane even to me. They searched the attic, tore up parts of the walls, and found something strange. An old crawl space sealed behind a false panel. Inside was a single wooden chair and a set of deep, fresh scratches across the floorboards. That was 6 months ago. I still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, certain I hear faint rocking somewhere in the dark. Last week, I got a package with no return address. Inside was an old Polaroid photo. The two of us, age 12, sitting in that attic, smiling for the camera. But in the far corner behind us, there's a tall figure watching. I swear it wasn't there before. Story 8, I was 19 the first time I realized that freedom could feel just as suffocating as a cage. When I packed up the last box from my parents' place in Raleigh, North Carolina, my mom hugged me like she knew something I didn't. "Just be careful out there, Emma," she said softly, her hands trembling on my shoulders. "You're not as invisible as you think." I laughed, brushing it off the way most 19-year-olds do when they're too eager to start over. "Mom, it's Virginia, not New York City. I'll be fine." I moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment on Hawthorne Street in Richmond, Virginia, with my cousin Hannah, who was finishing her nursing program. The place wasn't much. Outdated carpet, flickering kitchen light, paper-thin walls. But it was ours. I was starting my first semester in pre-law, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had control. Back home, I was the quiet girl, the one who never went to parties, who sat at the back of class and read instead of gossiping. I had exactly one real friend, Eli Carter. Eli was different. Even in middle school, there was something about him that made people keep their distance. He wasn't cruel, just quiet, intense in a way that made you feel like he could see through you. His dad worked construction, his mom had left when he was 12, and most days he showed up to school with yesterday's clothes and that faraway look in his eyes. We bonded in 8th grade after getting paired for a history project. I remember sitting in his garage while he carved small wooden figures with a pocket knife, talking about everything and nothing. Our parents, our plans, what we'd do if we could leave Raleigh forever. He said, "If you ever get out, promise you won't forget me." "I won't," I said, meaning it. We stayed close through high school. But as the years went on, Eli changed. He started skipping class, showing up with bruised knuckles, talking about people like they'd done him wrong. He once told me, "Most folks only pretend to care. But you see me." When he told me he loved me senior year, I panicked. I didn't love him that way. He was my best friend. I tried to let him down gently. He didn't take it gently. "You'll come around," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're the only one who gets me." You'll see that one day, a week later, he stopped talking to me altogether. By graduation, he was gone. No college, no job anyone knew of. Just vanished from town. I didn't hear from him again for almost 3 years. When I first moved to Richmond, things were good. I worked part-time at a small cafe near campus called Maple and Main, the kind of place with scratched wooden tables and indie music always playing too loud. The city felt alive. Sirens, laughter, street lights that hummed like crickets. I loved it. Hannah was the best roommate I could have asked for. Focused, kind, always leaving post-it notes with reminders like, "Eat something before class," or "Lock the balcony, creeps exist." She was all about safety. Then one night in late October, I walked home after closing the cafe around 11:15 p.m. The air was cold, sharp, and the streets were mostly empty except for the occasional passing car. As I turned onto Hawthorne, I felt it. That prickling at the back of your neck when you know you're being watched. I looked around. A figure stood across the street under the amber glow of a streetlight. Hood up, hands in pockets, motionless. I told myself it was nothing. Just some guy waiting for a ride. But the way he turned his head when I moved made my stomach twist. I hurried up the stairs to our building, fumbling with my keys. When I finally got the door open and locked it behind me, I laughed under my breath. "Get a grip, Emma," I muttered. But that night I couldn't sleep. A few days later I found the note. It was slipped under our apartment door, folded in half, written in handwriting I hadn't seen since high school. "You still look the same. I've missed you." The paper trembled in my hands, the letters were uneven, rushed. But I knew. I'd recognize Eli's handwriting anywhere. "Hannah!" I shouted. She came out of her room, messy bun, blue scrub still on from clinicals. "What's wrong?" I handed her the note. Her eyebrows knit. "Is this a prank?" "No," I whispered. "It's him." "Who?" "Eli Carter. From back home." Her expression shifted instantly. "The one who—" "Yeah," she exhaled slowly. "Okay. We're calling the building manager, maybe the cops too." But I stopped her. "No, maybe it's not him. Maybe someone found an old letter or—" "Emma," she said gently, "creeps like that don't just maybe come back." We reported it to the landlord anyway. but he shrugged it off. "Probably some college kid playing around," he said. "We'll change the locks if you want." We did, but it didn't help. The next few weeks were full of small, strange things. Sometimes when I'd come home late, I'd hear slow footsteps behind me. Never too close, but always there. Once I came home to find our balcony door slightly open, even though I was sure we'd locked it. Another time, my class notes disappeared from my backpack, then reappeared 2 days later on my desk, neatly stacked. Then came the second note. "You shouldn't have left. No name. No return address." Just that single sentence. I started sleeping with the lights on. Hannah offered to stay home more, but I told her not to. She needed her shifts. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't real, that maybe I was just tired, overworked, imagining things. Then one night I saw him. It was January 18, bitter cold. Hannah had gone in for an overnight shift, and I was curled up on the couch watching some mindless show just to fill the silence. Around 2:40 a.m., I heard a faint scraping sound coming from the balcony. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then came a sharper sound, a metallic squeal. I muted the TV. The sound stopped. I waited, heart pounding. Then through the glass door, I saw a silhouette crouched low. When the figure turned slightly, the porch light from the neighboring apartment flickered, and I saw his face. Eli. Older, thinner, eyes wild. But it was him. He was holding something. A glass cutter. I watched, paralyzed, as he traced a small circle on the window pane. The sound of the cutter against glass was sharp, deliberate. "Eli," I whispered without meaning to. He looked up, grinned, and mouthed the words, "Told you I'd find you." That snapped me out of it. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. The operator's calm voice barely cut through my shaking. "What's your emergency?" "There's someone trying to break into my apartment. He's on the balcony," I whispered. Please hurry." "Stay on the line. Is there a place you can lock yourself inside?" "My room," I said, running. "Yes. Go there now." "Don't hang up." I locked my bedroom door and grabbed the aluminum bat my uncle had given me when I moved out. "For peace of mind," he'd said. From the living room came the sharp crack of breaking glass. Then footsteps. "Emma," he called out softly. "You don't need to hide from me." His voice was hoarse, almost calm. That was somehow worse. "You knew I'd come. You knew this wasn't over." I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing. He rattled the bedroom doorknob, then knocked once, twice. "Come on," he said quietly. "We can talk." "I just want to talk. Police are on their way," I managed to say. My voice didn't sound like my own. He chuckled. "You think they'll get here in time?" The pounding started again. Wood cracked. My hands were slick with sweat around the bat handle. Then, sirens. Distant but close enough to make him pause. He hissed under his breath. "You called them?" Boots on the balcony, shouting. "Police!" "Drop it." A crash. I didn't open the door until an officer's voice came from the hallway. "Ma'am?" "It's safe now." When they found me, I was shaking so hard I couldn't stand. Eli had been tackled on the balcony, glass shards scattered around him. They said he hadn't even tried to run. He just kept repeating my name. The trial never happened. Eli was found mentally unfit to stand. The court sent him to a psychiatric facility in Petersburg. I moved out of that apartment the next week. Hannah helped me pack. She didn't say much, just hugged me before I left. "You don't owe him your fear," she whispered. It's been 6 years since that night. I'm 25 now, living in Charleston, South Carolina, and finishing law school. I've learned a lot about restraining orders, about how the system sometimes works too slowly for people who need it most. Eli's still in the hospital, from what I've been told. I stopped checking his status years ago, but some nights when I walk home from the library, I still feel that same cold prickling on the back of my neck. I tell myself it's just the wind, or maybe an echo of a memory that refuses to fade. Still, I can't shake it. That feeling that someone, somewhere is watching. Because every so often, when I check my mailbox, there's an empty envelope. No note, no handwriting, just my name written in pencil. Like he's still reminding me, he's not done.